This anime tells the story of Akane, a shy princess belonging to a large royal family in the country. The Sakurada family consists of the king, 9 siblings, and their mother. Each of the siblings has a unique and special power, proving their royalty. They are monitored by security cameras because the king has decreed a competition for the people to decide his successor. Citizens can get to know each of the siblings better through the 24-hour televised cameras. The day begins with the protagonist describing living in a large family as a daily battle. They reside in a residential city to have a normal life, but the cameras make that impossible. When Akane heads to class with her siblings, the cameras embarrass her, prompting her to hide. 2 of her siblings continue to class while Aoi stays with her, trying to avoid the cameras. Akane, unable to escape, uses her power to manipulate gravity to fly to class with her sister. After class, Akane dreads passing the cameras again. Aoi tries to fetch her from her classroom, but is stopped by a crowd of students as she is the most popular princess. When the sisters return home, the thief appears and Akane, although timid, pursues him. In her attempt to catch him using her power, her accidentally lifts, but she manages to hit the thief. Thankfully, they capture him and journalists try to interview her, but she covers her face, asking not to be filmed. Later, the family watches the news where Akane's story is featured, and they see the ranking of the polls for the next king. Aoi leads the polls, followed by Akane, who journalists believe could rise in the rankings. Despite her desire to be left alone, her father announces an opportunity for her to appear on television. The next day, the siblings face a crowd as journalists explain they'll play a game ordered by the king. They must gather stuffed animals from the roof and drop them into baskets on the street using their powers. The loser will clean all the castle's bathrooms. Teru starts by using his super strength to climb. Then Hikari, who manipulates life but gets stuck when she grows a tree. Kana materializes objects, Misaki multiplies with different emotions, Shiori talks to objects, Aoi has perfect memory, Shu teleports, and Haruka predicted probabilities. Haruka proposes to work with Akane, who agrees but is still nervous. When they reach the roof, Akane nearly hits Teru, but Shu saves him by teleporting them to a cherry blossom forest, inadvertently taking Akane's. Embarrassed, Akane screams while the crowd cheers. The competition ends with Shu winning and Akane and Hikari in last place. Aoi remains in the lead in the polls with Akane in second. That night, Akane expresses her desire not to be popular or under surveillance. Aoi suggests she aims to win the competition and become queen, giving her the power to nullify unwanted attention. Akane resolves to win and become queen. The next day, the protagonist wakes up late again because she forgot about a meeting with a committee comprising all the class representatives. However, her sister Kanade decides to leave without her. Still, that plan fails as Akane manages to catch up with her. On the way, the protagonist hides from people and cameras behind her sister, but Kanade asks her not to stick so close as it makes her uncomfortable. Akane reveals she decided to become king to get rid of the cameras. Kanade disagrees, saying that as king, she'll receive even more attention. However, Akane wants to become king to send her sister away as she constantly bothers her. She tries to stay calm because she can't afford to act inappropriately under surveillance. Kanade doesn't understand how her shy sister became a class representative. Akane explains that it's because she knows everyone in school, and as a representative, she can pay attention to everyone and help when her classmates have problems. Later, Akane continues to cling to her sister, but Kanade gets tired and asks her to let go. Once released, Kanade runs off with Akane chasing after her. Both get exhausted and end up in the middle of the road, but despite her sister's plea, Akane refuses to use her power due to a previous incident. They spot a cat crossing the street, but a truck is approaching. Akane rushes to save it, but she ends up in the middle of the road. Kanade creates a huge wall to shield her from the truck, and Akane, safe behind the wall, hugs her sister, who warns her not to do it again as it's dangerous. Later, when the siblings are together, they divide household chores. The protagonist really wants to stay home, but is assigned grocery shopping, which depresses her. Luckily, her brother Shu agrees to switch with her, but on the condition that she changes her hairstyle. Meanwhile, a girl named Sato Hana is in love with Shu and waits for him in the classroom. To her surprise, he appears in front of her, startling her and causing Shu to spill his drink on her. Although Hana remains unconcerned, her friend Hitomi scolds the prince for his actions. Alone, the girls interrogate Hana about her feelings for Shu. She nervously lists a few characteristics she likes about him and mentions that he remembered her from when they were younger. Hitomi accidentally pushes Hana, causing her to fall on Shu, who finds comfort in her scent before she apologizes and runs off. After classes, Hana realizes she forgot something important and recalls that she didn't say goodbye to her crush. She searches the school and finds Shu with a red-haired girl, assuming she's his girlfriend. Determined to find out the truth, she follows them, and the siblings notice her. They hide and eventually confront her, leading to Hana confessing her feelings to Shu and explaining her concerns. Shu apologizes and admits he's focused on the elections and sabotaging Kanade's chances of becoming king. Akayan overhears this and starts thinking about Shu's words. Despite being rejected, Hana decides to wait for him. Shu promises to reciprocate her feelings once everything is settled, leaving her happy. That night, Hana excitedly tells Hitomi about what happened. When Hitomi receives another call and hears Shu's voice wishing her good night, she realizes he might also have feelings for her. Meanwhile, Akane can't sleep as she ponders Shu and Hana's situation, unable to understand why her brother doesn't want Kanade to become king. It's a new day, and Hikari wants to be the next queen of the country, so her friends promise to vote for her despite her being in 5th place. When they are at home, the siblings discuss the competition, and Kanade claims that none of the siblings are competition for her. She believes that both Aoi and Akane, who are in the top spots, aren't interested in the elections. However, Aoi argues that not showing interest doesn't mean she isn't interested. Meanwhile, Hikari wishes to gain more votes, so she decides to accompany Akane on shopping trips to help the people get to know her better through the cameras. However, the protagonist wants to take a shortcut to avoid the cameras, which her sister doesn't like. Along the way, they encounter a lost cat, and Akane, noticing too late, becomes anxious and asks a passing man for help. However, the man is scared off by Akane's gaze. Meanwhile, Hikari tries to rescue the cat from a tree but ends up growing her body instead. Akane mistakes her for another woman due to her older appearance caused by her enlarged body. When she realizes it's her sister, she notices that the clothes are too small, so she can't leave her hiding spot. Later, they arrive home and everyone notices their physical changes. Both Hikari and Akane change, allowing them to switch clothes. However, Shu questions why they didn't just shrink the tree to rescue the cat. Hikari acknowledges his point but realizes they forgot to do the shopping due to the incident. After the redraw, Akane is assigned to do the shopping again, but she doesn't want to go. Teruto volunteers, feeling he needs to become stronger to protect the people he cares about. Shiori, the youngest in the family, worries about him and decides to accompany him. Along the way, they encounter problems, but thanks to his little sister, they manage to face them. Akane and Hikari are hiding, but Teru and Shiori spot them, although they don't recognize them due to their transformed appearance. After finishing shopping, a dog appears and rushes towards Shiori to attack her, but Teru uses his super strength to stop it, determined not to let anyone harm his sister. After the dog runs away scared, the children return home safely. After watching an idol show, Hikari decides she wants to become one to gain popularity among voters. She attempts to borrow clothes from one of her sisters for an audition, but Haruka catches her. After listening to her reasons, he decides to secretly help her. After rigorous training, it's time for the audition, but unfortunately, Hikari is rejected because her ID still states she's in elementary school. Both she and Haruka leave the place, and Haruka asks her to wait for him as he needs to use the bathroom. While he's gone, a man claiming to be an idol agency agent approaches Hikari and recruits her, which she accepts without hesitation. When Haruka returns and can't find her, he searches and eventually finds her outside the agency. The agents realize Hikari is royalty and apologize to the king, asking for permission to turn his daughter into an idol, which he grants without hesitation. The next day, the siblings see Hikari on television, but Haruka notices she appears under a different name and appearance, despite her efforts to gain more voters. Hikari freezes upon realizing it was all in vain. It's a new day, and the protagonist wakes up because the cat her sister rescued won't let her sleep. The cat keeps bothering her for food, but even when she feeds it, the cat continues to nibble on garbage. So the next day, she asks Shiori to use her power and asks the cat why it behaves like that. The cat tells her it feels disappointed because it thought it would eat better in a royal family, but it's not the case. A girl named Ayurveda Karen, Kane's best friend, is waiting for her in class. When Kane arrives, everyone notices she's not wearing her, but they don't know whether to tell her as they would feel extremely embarrassed. It seems she's been like that all day, but no one said anything because it seemed unreal, and they doubted what their eyes were seeing. Despite wanting to warn her, they feel she hasn't noticed yet, so they don't know what to do. Kanade's classmate informs her that her sister is at school without a... But she doesn't believe it's possible because it's too embarrassing, and besides, she should mind her own business. However, she's so worried that she accidentally hits a wall she created herself. When Akane is in her classroom, she's called by the committee vice president, who is Kanade, so Aegis decides to accompany her. However, all the students hear the announcement, and doubting whether the girl was wearing a or not, they decide to follow her to see her climb the stairs. Karen realizes this and tries to help by hurrying her friend along. However, they encounter Kanade along the way, who realizes what they were told was true. When she tells Akane, the girl claims she had an issue on the way and her tore, so she's wearing But in front of everyone, the protagonist makes a mistake and ends up very embarrassed. At school, an announcement is made by the student committee, led by the vice president, who communicates that the school will conduct a general cleaning in the city, so everyone must participate and make an effort. However, the students are only intrigued to know who the committee president is. Later, Akane talks with her classmate named Fukushima, but another student arrives calling him president and interrupts their conversation. He asks the girl to go alone to deliver the documents. The boy encounters a fan club for Akane, and Fukushima is the president, so the members ask him to talk to Kanade to avoid the city cleaning and be able to take care of his beloved. He talks to Akane's older sister, but she refuses his requests, stating that her sister owes her favors, and that will help her face her fears. However, the boy talks to Aoi, who ends up saying the same thing, so he becomes convinced and decides to help Akane overcome her fears. Meanwhile, the protagonist thinks Fukushima is the committee president, so she follows him. But she's unsuccessful in her search and ends up finding him in her classroom. The next day is the city cleaning day, so Akane feels very nervous and embarrassed, but Fukushima encourages her. After the cleaning, the protagonist is exhausted, so she lies down on the couch to rest, and the cat lies down with her as it reminds her of the times it was in the garbage. But the girl believes the cat has grown fond of her. After a few days, the siblings go to a private beach at the king's request, so they can enjoy a day alone without worrying about people watching them. The kids decide to play a game of breaking the watermelon, so Haruka uses his powers to assess the probabilities of his siblings. Kanade looks at the probabilities and isn't surprised to see that her siblings only have a 1% chance and she has a 50% chance. But she can't believe it when she sees that Shiori has an 80% chance, higher than everyone else. When they start playing, Haruka guesses everything correctly, but when it's Kanade's turn, she doesn't want to concede to her brother, so she tries to break the watermelon. Despite hitting it, she fails to break it. Then it's Shadowray's turn, and as she advances, she uses her power to communicate with the watermelon, which grants her permission to break it, so she ends up winning the competition. Later, the siblings play volleyball, but Shu asks them not to get too close to the fence, which is one less thing. However, the ball flies towards it, so Akane goes to retrieve it but ends up hitting a wall. The kids realize they are actually enclosed by 4 walls. Shu confesses they are on a property near the city, and their father wanted them to have some privacy. Despite being initially upset, they accept the truth, but accidentally, the walls collapse, leaving them surprised as they are actually in the middle of the city and the citizens walking by see them in their embarrassing Akane. The next day, Akane hears noises coming from Haruka's room. When she enters, she sees her brother looking at pictures of her on the internet. Both startled, they scare each other. Akane demands an explanation, but he doesn't know what to say and tries to come up with an excuse, but none work. She to tell Misaki, so he reveals there's a website where fans upload content, photos, and videos of them, but he was trying to delete some photos but couldn't. During class time, Misaki decides to clone herself as she has many activities to do during the day while she has an interview. After the activities, the club members thank her for her help as several clubs apparently depend on her. However, Misaki feels insecure because her clones are skilled while she's only seen as their manager. When she returns home, she tries to talk to her sisters, who are her clones, to voice her complaints, but none pay attention. At that moment, Akane arrives to inform them they have an interview, but Misaki gives up. Haruka decides to intervene, telling her that they are all part of her, so you would feel sad if Misaki stops being Misaki because she's someone special. Misaki blushes and regains her senses, asking all of them to return to her body, and thus they become one again, and she's in charge. Half a year later, the elections are approaching and Akane decides to hold an event as part of her campaign. As expected, she is very nervous and can barely get the words out. However, her fan club is supporting her, and according to the news reports, she managed to captivate the hearts of the voters. The princess is embarrassed, but still says she will make an effort because she wants to censor the internet and remove security cameras. Misaki realizes that all her siblings have plans for her campaign, although she thinks her siblings are selfish because they only want to reach the throne for their own benefits. That's why she holds a meeting with all her clones to plan a campaign. Meanwhile, at school, Kanade remembers when she was little and wanted to go out to play, but Shu didn't want to. So she decided to take Akane with her, although the prince still accompanied them. After spending some time at the park, Akane wanted to go back home. But since Kanade didn't want to, she created a castle for her. However, her powers fail and the castle collapses on Akane. Nevertheless, Shu comes to her rescue and both of them get injured. Kanade's wish is to become queen just to invent a medicine to cure her brother's legs since he always wanted to play soccer. Misaki walks with Haruka through the city and comes across her siblings campaigning, realizing that they are not doing anything. So she holds another meeting, but none of her clones are excited. However, Haruka says that she is wrong in her thinking because people need to have a goal to want something, and that's the case with her siblings. He supports his sister, saying she has what it takes to be queen because she's always helping people and striving too hard for others. For that reason, the young ones decide to fight. Kanai decides to go to a nursery for her campaign and has fun until a girl confesses that she will vote for Awa. That night, Kanai decides to confront her sister and asks her to withdraw from the elections since she doesn't seem interested. The princess thinks her sister has turned bad for asking her, but Kanai questions whether the real reason for her lack of interest in the elections is because of her true ability, as that could change the country. After her sister leaves, Oda contemplates that if she uses it, anything could happen. When the young girl is at school, everyone watches her because she's not only the chosen one for queen, but also because she's putting up posters voluntarily for the school. At that moment, she asks her friends for help, and they accept. But she remembers the time she used her true ability with one of her friends. After they did tests on her, the doctor confirmed that her true ability is to give orders and people have no choice but to obey. However, the effect is not long-lasting. When her friends finish, she invites them for a drink, although she feels insecure since she ordered them to help her. But they don't feel that way as they did it by themselves and ask her to trust them more since they are true friends. While they are having coffee, Akane appears looking lost, so they all go to their homes. Oi's friends say they will support the young princess in the elections because she is trying very hard. Akane, very happy, tells her sister that she has very good friends, so Oi realizes that's true since they have always been by her side. In the following days, the king has plans in his schedule, so he has to leave home. However, Akane has the flu, so Kanai decides to stay to take care of her and Shiori. The king feels the need to hire security agents to protect the three sisters, but Akane asks him to trust her, as she is too old to be protected by security. The king listens to her, although he seems to be a bit afraid of his daughter, but he asks her not to use her ability to create things she doesn't know. Once the king leaves, Kanai visits her sister Akane, treating her kindly. However, Akane says she shouldn't try so hard to pretend, as she could win the elections if she shows who she really is, but she wants to appear mature like Awa. After a while, Shiori is worried about her sister, so Kanai goes to see her again, but to her surprise, her fever has increased. Not knowing what to do, she tries to create a medicine to cure her, but remembers her father's words prohibiting her from using her abilities, so Akane asks her not to do it, as resting will surely help her get better. However, they start arguing and Shiori hears their fight, so she enters the room and kisses Akane on the cheek, who immediately falls asleep. The girl says that's the method their parents use to make them feel better. Later, Kanai spends the day with Shiori, but before bedtime they hear a noise coming from the rooms, so the older sister goes to investigate, and to her surprise, there's a man in one of the rooms, so out of fright, she creates an object to stop him. However, when the young man falls, she realizes it's Shu. Because of all this, the security agents enter the house to make sure the girls are safe, so the king gets upset because they were supposed to carry out the mission without them noticing. Therefore, Kanai gets angry and tells her father that she will wait for him to return to talk because apparently he doesn't trust her. Once everything returns to normal, Kanai stays with Akane to take care of her, but once she falls asleep, she gives her a goodnight kiss and then goes to rest with Shiori. Hikari is very busy with her idol life, so she has put aside her school responsibilities, which is reflected in her grades, which are not very good. However, her agent is willing to boost the popularity of the young girl. However, someone who disagrees with this is Sachito, a young idol who belongs to the same company as Hikari. The agent proposes to both of them to perform a duet concert, since it would help the beginner idol. Sachito tells her colleague that she saw her previous concert, but she found it somewhat mediocre because she didn't give a good performance, although she agrees to do the duet concert, just to show that it takes not only talent but also effort to succeed. Days go by and both prepare for the concert, but Hikari realizes that her partner stopped talking to her, so she decides to make an effort to show her determination to move forward. Before the concert, Akane asks her sister if she can go to the concert and meet her favorite idol. She accepts but asks her not to approach her as they might suspect she is royalty. The concert day arrives, Sakio tells Hikari that she only does it for her and her fans. However, both give their all in the first concert, but Sakio notices that for the second concert, Hikari is full of energy while she doesn't have as much, causing her to injure her ankle. So they pause the concert, and the doctor advises her not to go back out, or she could hurt herself even more. So the agent leaves the show in Hikari's hands, which shows everyone that she has prepared a lot for this occasion, which is reflected in the excited fans. Suichido can see that she has improved, so once the concert ends, she apologizes to Hikari as she has been very cruel to her. But she also says that they may become rivals, which doesn't bother the princess as she hugs her and asks her to become friends. Autumn arrived and Prince Shu accompanied Setu home. She remarks that walking together every day feels like a dream, but when she turns around, the young man is no longer there. Unbeknownst to her, he inadvertently teleported away, as it seems all the siblings are going through a breakout where their powers are out of control and they can't do anything to stop it. That night, Akane receives a message from Setu asking to meet as she needs to talk to her. The next day, Akane waits for the girl amidst the crowd, trying to keep calm as her powers haven't stabilized yet. When Setu arrives, she notices this and immediately links it to what happened with Shu, thinking he ran away at that moment. Despite clearing up her doubts about Shu, she invites the princess for a drink. On the way, Setu mentions that Shu gave her the princess's contact to talk about things she couldn't with him. Akane wonders why she doesn't speak with Kaned, who is in her class, but Setu admits she's scared of her. She also confides feeling insecure about what people will say, as Shu is a prince and she's just a normal girl. Akane responds that it can be challenging because when someone associates with them, people can't help but watch them. While at the restaurant, the student apologizes for making the protagonist uncomfortable, but she assures it doesn't matter. However, she suggests she should get used to it because if she wants to marry her brother, she'll attract attention. However, things spiral out of control when Akane activates her power, causing her clothes. Fortunately, Setu covers her with her coat and asks her to flee while she distracts the people. At that moment, the girl begins shouting in front of everyone about her feelings for Prince Shu, revealing she wants to marry him. Later, the confession makes it to the news and Prince Shu sees it, simply saying it's fine if she wants that, while Kaned feels upset and jealous about it. Prince Shu recalls that since he entered school, he couldn't make friends because they feared him and because his servant Sua was always by his side. Tired of her following him everywhere, he escapes until he reaches the school rooftop. There he finds a girl sleeping, but she wakes up immediately and appears annoyed, thinking he had ulterior motives. The prince uses his other ability to see people's aura of feelings, and to his surprise, the girl doesn't feel fear toward him, but seems transparent and light. However, as an apology, he asks her to accompany him shopping and then ends up at her house. There Shu meets her siblings, who seemingly don't recognize him. The children are surprised as their sister never brought a boy home, but the young man takes advantage to read their auras, which show curiosity, interest, and hope for him. She was surprised as it's the first time he's seen those colors in an aura. Due to this, he lies about his family, while she says her parents work all day, so she takes care of her younger siblings. After dinner together, Shu feels happy as he could spend the day without anyone fearing him. When they bid goodbye, the girl says they never properly introduced themselves, so she introduces herself as Shinonom Satsuki, although she bids farewell to him as Prince, revealing she knew him but never said anything. Back home, the king shows his children photos from when he was young. He says that even a king can seem like an ordinary person, and all this changed since he met his wife, Satsuki. Shu remarks that no matter how hard they try, they'll still be royalty and will always attract attention. His father says he knew that, but thanks to Satsuki, he started smiling naturally and stayed with him despite being royalty. From then on, he knew the family should be raised in the calmest way possible. This makes him think, so he asks to talk to Setu. When they meet, the girl thinks he'll break up with her as he talks about the meaning of being king, but he takes her hand and unknowingly, they teleport to a cold place. However, she starts crying, saying she was happy while with him and runs away, but he stops her, asking if she'll stay by his side when he becomes king because he wants her to. They are about to kiss, but Setu ruins the moment as she freezes due to the cold. One night, a man is walking peacefully until a huge iron is about to fall on him, but luckily Akane saves him and says she's there to protect her city. However, she appears in a heroine disguise and introduces herself as Scarlet Bloom. The man thanks her but feels confused by her name. Earlier, Akane gives a lecture where she can't speak without feeling embarrassed and therefore runs away. Oi accompanies her the whole time but thinks that despite her sister's effort to campaign publicly, it didn't work as she's now in 5th place, so she needs to think of a new plan. However, when she's at home, she sees a TV show where a masked girl is a heroine, so she gets the idea to turn Akane into a heroine who can help people. She shares this with Kaned to help her. Oi reveals her plan and intends to unveil her identity before the elections as it will boost her popularity. The young girl listens and gets up to bring her some glasses, saying they're special as wearing them, no one will recognize her. Oi is somewhat skeptical, thinking they're just regular glasses, but eventually agrees. When they give Akane the glasses, none of them can see the difference because according to Kaned, the effect doesn't work with people familiar with the object. So Aoi and Akane go to ask their brothers if they recognize her, and they all claim not to know her. But Shiori feels guilty and starts crying. Later, Akane goes out with her disguise and glasses to help people, introducing herself as Scarlet Bloom. The citizens are confused but happy with her actions. However, when she saves a cat, her classmate and president of her fan club, Fukushima, recognizes her, as does the young man with him. Still, Fukushima stays silent, decides to play along, and encourages her. At the end of the day, the siblings realize that a Scarlet Bloom fan club has been created, videos about her have been uploaded, and she's even been on television where they show Akane's position has risen to third place. She doesn't understand how she rose so much if she's hiding her identity. Oa tries to say it might be because of the interviews she gave, but Misaki was about to reveal that it's because they know it's her, but Aoi asks to speak privately, and when she returns, she looks a bit discouraged and also lies to her like all her siblings. When Akane goes out for a walk with her friend, they see a girl about to fall from a balcony, so she immediately acts and manages to save her. The girl thanks her and calls her by her heroine name, but when she returns home, she realizes she never wore the glasses, as she thinks people might have already noticed she looks like the heroine, while Misaki watches her, unable to tell her the truth. In the following days, Misaki is very busy at school with different clubs, so she asks Haruka to work alone on her speech. When she returns home, she sees all her siblings working on their campaigns by themselves, so despite Haruka saying he's finished the speech, she feels like a fake person as someone else is writing her speeches while her brothers are doing their own. Haruka smiles and says she's suitable for the role and he'll always be by her side, also being her campaign assistant. Misaki accepts and promises to make Haruka proud, so the next day she gives a speech in front of the citizens and despite being nervous, tells them she hopes they all move forward together for the country. Oa passes by with her friends and people recognize her, so as not to bother anyone, she decides to leave. But when the girls are alone, the princess tries to invite her friends to a restaurant, but they all make excuses and leave her alone. She ends up alone drinking coffee when she thinks that when she becomes queen, nothing will be the same, and she feels she's forcing her friends to hang out with her. But then she receives a message from one of the girls inviting her to her house, making her very happy. When they meet, the girl asks the princess to wait outside as she needs to tidy up her house, but once she invites her inside, Oa is surprised as her friends plan to celebrate her birthday a day early as she usually spends it with her family, and they wanted to be part of her celebration. This excites Aoi, who thanks them and spends a lovely afternoon with them, wishing that happiness lasts forever. When she returns home, she hears her brothers planning a surprise birthday party as they do every year, but she stays outside, knowing it also makes her brothers happy. Election day is approaching and Sachiko watches the news with her assistant, who says she'll support Aoi in the elections. However, the idol expresses her disinterest in royalty, stating that they tend to have everything handed to them without effort. The next day, Hikari meets with her agent, who suggests revealing her true identity to her fans since the elections are close, which would increase her popularity. However, Hikari seems distracted and doesn't comment on it. Sachiko overhears part of the conversation where the agent tells Hikari to give her final concert as an idol, leading her to believe that Hikari might be leaving the industry. Despite her newfound fame, Hikari feels she doesn't know much about her colleague outside of work. During their meeting, the agent announces they'll hold a joint concert, but neither Hikari nor Sachiko are enthusiastic, both preoccupied with their own thoughts. Later, Sachiko's assistant falls ill, prompting Hikari to suggest bringing Akane as a replacement. Hikari uses her ability to make Akane appear older, successfully disguising her. Following rehearsals, Hikari speaks with her agent, expressing her reluctance to reveal her true identity as being an idol has become essential to her. The agent is surprised but accepts her decision. Sachiko overhears Hikari's conversation and feels upset. At the concert, both girls feel overwhelmed. Sachiko begins to think Hikari used the situation as a campaign strategy, possibly leveraging her royal status to gain support. Before going on stage, Hikari gathers courage and confesses the truth to Sachiko, feeling it's necessary to tell her. Sachiko approaches her, punches her, and expresses that she doesn't care about her royal status, only if she took it seriously or not. They reconcile and deliver their best performance. Akane, who is watching over them, realizes how much her sister has grown and matured, finding her true passion and putting all her effort into it. Princess Kanade goes shopping but encounters Shu and Sato, who is helping him with his campaign. Kanade hides from them, recalling the accident where her brother was injured. She feels guilty as the doctor informs the king that Akane has no memory of the incident due to the shock she suffered, while she was a knee problem. Kanade remembers that every time she creates something that her monetary power cannot finance, she must pay with a physical value. Therefore, she wants to win the elections. Shu, noticing her guilt, assures her that what happened is in the past and offers to help her with the shopping. Kanade expresses her desire to repay him for what happened, but Shu disagrees, emphasizing the importance of moving forward. A gust of wind suddenly threatens Kanade, but Shu swiftly saves her. After reconciling, Shu advises Kanade to become queen for herself, not for anyone else. Kanade jokingly responds that when she becomes queen, she'll carry out her dictatorship. 1 month remains until the elections, and Kanade has changed significantly since it all began, as she has become more sociable and happier with her peers and the people around her. Not only her, but all of her siblings are putting in a lot of effort into their campaigns. According to the latest census, Aoi has consistently held the first position since the beginning, while Akane occupies the second place. Misaki feels down as she's in fifth place, having had little time for campaigning due to helping the citizens, but Haruka and Aoi see this as a positive trait in her. Meanwhile, Teru feels even worse as he's in last place and cannot prove that he wants to protect his loved ones, but Shiori takes his hand and tells him that he is the best in her eyes. Hikari begins to doubt Akane's behavior as she doesn't know when she started acting shy, considering she was always cheerful. Kanae recalls a story from when Akane was young, where she used to want to act like a heroine but would often get into trouble because she was very aggressive. One day, she wanted to go to her friend Karen's house, but under orders from the king, she had to go with bodyguards, which she didn't want. Along the way, she got rid of them and arrived alone at Karen's house, where they discovered 2 burglars. Despite the scare, Akane decided to use her powers to deal with them and help her friend, but due to nerves, she used too much power and ended up destroying Karen's house. Although the bodyguards arrived late, they made sure both girls were okay. However, citizens began to talk about her and the fear towards her started to grow. That day, she began to wish people would stop looking at her. Akane feels embarrassed upon hearing this story, but as she's about to leave, Kanade asks her if becoming queen would change anything. At that moment, Oi receives a call informing her that their father was unwell. When everyone visits their father at the castle, he tells his children that he has a hernia, but will still attend to his pending duties. However, the kids won't let him strain himself like that, so they all take care of the pending tasks to help the king recover. Akane, Shu, and Teru visit a village that was isolated due to a road closure, with Teru taking charge of the road. Shu helps by carrying water, while Akane assists the people with her powers wearing the scarlet balloon disguise. However, when a girl thanks her, Akane realizes she forgot her glasses as she was so focused on helping that she didn't notice she wasn't wearing them. She decides to bid farewell to Scarlet as she doesn't think it's necessary anymore. The king realizes how much his children have grown and matured, as they have become very responsible. When they show the updates of the survey, it can be seen that there will be a close race between Aoi, Akane, Kanan, and Shu, as their percentages are very close. Teru is happy as he has gained a few points, although he asks Haruka if he knows who is most likely to win. Haruka looks at Aoi, but thinks it's only a possibility. One day remains until the elections, and it is announced that before the citizens choose, each candidate must give a final speech. At school, Karen asks her class to support Akane in the elections, while she asks them to attend her final speech, although she still doesn't know what topic to address. Yuzuki, the committee president, tells Kanad that once she graduates, she will take her place as president, which makes the princess happy. Yuzuki asks her about the topic of her speech, so the princess says it will be about her siblings since she saw how hard they worked in the campaigns and wants to speak only good things about them, highlighting their virtues. Yuzuki shares this with Aoi, who is her friend, and they both say they support her, even though they know deep down the princess doesn't want to become queen. Meanwhile, Misaki receives support from all the club members she helped, although the Kari is more concerned about the idol battle than the elections. When they are at home, their mother advises them to speak from the heart in her speeches, as that is what the citizens want to hear. That night, Oi talks to her parents about the elections and expresses that she doesn't want to be part of it. The king accepts her decision and congratulates her, as she doesn't want to use her ability to force people to do what she wants. Additionally, he doesn't want to force his children to do something they don't want for their lives, as in his case, he had no choice since he was an only child. Election day arrives and many people gather at the castle to listen to the candidates, while the siblings spend their last moments in their own way, some nervous and others calm. When the time comes to go out, the siblings argue about who will speak first, but Aoi asks to speak first. There in front of the crowd, she announces that she is withdrawing from the candidacy, surprising not only the citizens but also her siblings. She also talks about her true ability and her unwillingness to use it on others as she doesn't think it's appropriate. However, thanks to the time she spent with her family, friends, and citizens, she wants to continue helping everyone. To her surprise, the crowd starts applauding her, deeply moving her. However, a zeppelin begins to fall and the siblings act immediately. Shu, along with Shiori and Akane, tries to divert the object, while the other siblings try to keep calm and ensure the safety of the people. Shu takes advantage of the situation to make his speech, stating that there is someone important to him whom he wants to keep safe and happy. He urges everyone to trust each of his siblings as they all want the same for everyone. They manage to control the situation without anyone getting hurt. Once the elections are over, Shu is chosen as the king. Thus ends this anime. Aoi, after graduating from university, decided to live alone. Shu introduced his girlfriend to his parents. Kanai began studying to enter university. Misaki became the student council president, and Haruka is her secretary. Hikari revealed her true idol identity, but continues to work. Teru and Shiori decided to help their brother Shu, so they now study at the castle, while our protagonist Akane hasn't changed much but is trying to overcome her fear completely.